because poverty has so many forms. Economic poverty is very, very painful. It's also maybe the form of poverty which is easier to see. But poverty takes so many forms in society. I think of people I've had to do with in my ministry. Some of the poorest of the poor, it may not always coincide with the economically poor. Some of the poorest of the poor I have met are people who suffer from mental illness, people who suffer from addictions. But one thing which unites all of the poor, which cuts across transversally the whole phenomenon of poverty, is the fact not only will the poor always be among us until Christ comes again, but in their poverty, they represent the Christ. And this is why not only must we work to alleviate poverty, but it also means that we must ourselves become poorer. And I think that's all I have to say at the moment. I'm very sorry if you were expecting from me something a wee bit more articulate and a wee bit more maybe elaborate. And I hope everyone understood my Scottish accent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Msgr Bell. Can everyone... Okay, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. No, that was a wonderful reflection and a very good introduction for our next two speakers. I think you've set the scene perfectly by describing how the poor are representatives of Christ and why that means that we have to take extra special care and attention as Catholics in our approach. I think also your description of the various activities that will be undertaken was very, very helpful in terms of actually understanding what Pope Francis means by taking a new approach as well, because sometimes it's hard to know what a new approach could be. But I think that you've really given us a lot of food for thought. So thank you. So to move on now to our next speaker, who is Sister Regina Ignatia Afla, who is the Coordinator for Human Rights and Justice at Caritas Ghana. She is also a lawyer and a lecturer, and is also currently pursuing a PhD in international law and treaty law. So today, Sister Regina will be talking to us today about the significant presence of women and their readiness to lead in the context of Pope Francis's message. So returning back to what Msgr Bell, the story that he told us, which is in Pope Francis's message of the woman with the alabaster jar full of oil, Sister Regina is now going to talk to us a bit about what this really means in real life terms, in practical terms today. So thank you, Sister Regina.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And I'm happy to share my thoughts with you on this webinar on the theme, Women Significantly Present and Ready to Lead. Among the many questions posed regarding women issues are whether women are naturally born to lead. It is a common phenomenon that a woman's right from childhood is endowed with that spirit to manage the home. At that has made some psychologists affirm that a woman is naturally gifted to lead. We can find this from an article by Nicole Lipkin, a contributor for the Forbes Women, published in 2019. Contribute to earlier study that indicates that once women take leadership position, they excel irrespective of where they find themselves, often surpassing men because they have developed soft skills necessary for effective leadership. Women have traits like apathy, communication, and listening are qualities that serves women well when in management position. As we commemorate the World Day of the Poor, I would like to pay attention to the African woman. In a research report for the World Bank, led by Catherine on accelerating poverty reduction in Africa, published in 2019, it was established that in Africa, the number of the poor have increased from 278 million in 1990 to 413 million in 2015. According to the paper, about 82% of the poor live in deprived areas depending on subsistence farming. Women are mainly in the center of poverty. In this poverty situation, the African woman demonstrates her managerial ability to support the family. Many have contributed immensely to the success of their family, and many have excelled to be leaders in the African society today. I would therefore like to use this opportunity to raise awareness about the unique contribution of women, including myself, the women I have encountered in my work, the need to take action to promote our equal dignity and wealth, and to reiterate our solemn belief that women make an invaluable contribution to our society. The Bible refers to some women who have been influential and effective as leaders. Mention can be made of the great leader Deborah in Judges 4 and 5. Exodus 15:20 refers to Miriam as one of the first to pick up an instrument to lead in worship when the children of Israel miraculously crossed the Red Sea. Micah 6:4 names Miriam as a leader of the nation, along with Moses and Aaron. A whole of the Bible is named after Esther as a fearless leader who risks her own life to save the lives of the Jewish people. The Lucan Gospel provides a perspective that reflects the more excellent, welcome, and inclusive of women in the ministry of Jesus. This can be found in Luke chapters 8, 10, 18, 21, etc. Throughout his gospel, Luke tells the story of the good news of God in Jesus Christ through the story of women. The story of Luke 8, 1-5 shows how women are instrumental in the ministry of Jesus. The 12 accompany him, and also some women. Mary called Magdalene, Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward, Susanna, and I may add the many more nameless women who were assisting them out of their means. I want all of us to look with appreciation and admiration at the women mentioned above. With their presence and service, they rendered possible the mission of Christ and his apostles. With their presence and service, they rendered possible the mission of Christ and his apostles. Some of us may overlook or consider as insignificant what these women did. However, I want to stress that without their help and presence, which one imagines attentively and thoughtfully, the first proclamation would not have been possible. After recounting the story of the woman with the alabaster flags, Pope Francis writes that nameless women meant perhaps to represent all those women who down the centuries who have been silenced and suffer violence, thus become the first of those women who were significantly present at the supreme moment of Christ's life, his crucifixion, death, burial, and resurrection. Women so often discriminated against and excluded from position of responsibility are seen in the gospel to play a leading role in the ministry of revelations. From Luke 23:27, it is clear that in the weakness and suffering of Jesus, the women were sharing with him their tears. Are the women professional mourners who were expected to mourn in time of impending gloom? From all indications, they are not. If they are simply enacting traditional rules, we may regard them as embodying a ministry of care. Like the women in the gospel, the role of women in ministry sharing, in women emancipation and poverty reduction in many parts of Africa today is even more paramount. Perhaps without the support and presence of certain women in the church and society, we will not know what to do or where to go. I have had the privilege of being a nun for 19 years and have served in different capacities. I am currently the coordinator, Human Rights and Justice for Caritas Ghana. As a nun and a coordinator, I am happy to say that I have continuously worked for tremendous respect, inclusion, equality, and fairness in the church and in the society for women. My experience have taught me that women have more unearthed potentials that need to be assumed and tapped. Women have unique strength in making a difference in people's life. Nevertheless, my role in leadership had not been without struggle. I have experienced a lot of disrespect and disregard as a woman in management. Despite the effort by Caritas Internationalis for women to be included in leadership positions, the church in Africa, and especially Caritas member organizations, are yet to accept women in leadership. For instance, in the whole of Caritas Africa, with 46 countries, only 2 women are holding national directorship positions. In Ghana, my experience has not been the best, and I am still facing a lot of difficulties as a woman in management. Another concrete example is, whereas no empirical audit of women's presence in the governance structures of Caritas Africa member organization has been done, the visible sign shows a worrying trend of underrepresentation of women with no set agenda to change it. There is only one hand-picked woman on the board of Caritas Ghana, for instance. Pope Francis has announced a new synodal process and urged that broad participation and consultation be carried out by diocesan bishops. Women in Africa can rise to this challenge, but the question is, will the system create space for women's significant presence, that is what we have to be reflecting upon. Though Caritas Ghana has worked tirelessly in advocating for the rights of women in all areas of life, women have still not been recognized as such. Today, I want to thank all women for their role in our societies as professionals in Caritas, in the church, in addition to their role as persons and as mothers, first educators of their children and the future of our society. However, women empowerment in the continent continues to be a challenge. I pray for change of mindset of the African, and for that matter, the church in Africa and Caritas member organizations, that we will accept women in leadership position for the growth of our Confederation. Thank you so much. God bless all women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Regina, for that powerful and moving reflection, especially on the experience of the African woman. One of the things which in our work here, it's obviously very important to understand the different experiences across our Confederation. And so I'm grateful to you for sharing the experiences of the African woman in relation to Pope Francis's message, which I think we all hope will inspire change and inspire us in new ways to address these challenges that you have brought our attention to, which I'm sure there are millions of women all over the world who experience this sort of poverty. So thank you very much, Sister Regina. I'd now like to introduce our final speaker, who is, I hope I pronounce this correctly, Jairo Adonis Martinez Guifaro, who is a student from Honduras, who coordinates the National Network of Young Artisans of Peace, promoted through Caritas Honduras. He has more than 10 years of experience with his youth group, and he will be talking today on the role which young people can play in the fight against poverty. Of course, not only young people, but he will be talking from his experience with Caritas Youth. After he has spoken, I'm then going to introduce Rebecca Rathbone, who is our officer promoting youth leadership here at the General Secretariat, who will also speak about some initiatives which she has organized between the World Day of the Poor and World Youth Day, which is the Sunday after the World Day of the Poor. But first, I would like to invite Jairo to take the floor. Thank you.
Hola a todos y todas, un saludo fraterno. Jairo Martínez les saluda desde Honduras. Vamos a compartir un pequeño testimonio o reflexión sobre el papel que desempeñan los jóvenes en la lucha contra la pobreza. Es importante tener en cuenta que el joven desempeña un papel muy importante dentro de la sociedad y a la vez a la lucha contra la pobreza. El papel que desempeñamos los jóvenes es realmente asombroso porque muchas veces acá en nuestro país los jóvenes somos solidarios porque visitamos algunas comunidades o regiones de nuestro entorno para poder contribuir a los pobres, a los más necesitados, una alimentación, un vestuario, y también hemos sido como agentes de apoyo en diferentes centros de acopio donde, donde se almacenan personas que han sido damnificadas por algún fenómeno natural en nuestra región. Y el servicio que nosotros los jóvenes aportamos, partiendo pues de los fenómenos naturales que se viven en nuestra región, y cómo nosotros también los jóvenes somos o buscamos, luchamos contra eso de la pobreza. Como jóvenes tenemos diferentes aspectos o líneas de trabajo que hoy en día tenemos en cuenta. Dentro de ellos somos jóvenes con pensadores críticos que llevamos pues más allá de buscar una solución, más allá de luchar contra la pobreza. Somos jóvenes agentes de cambio que tenemos alguna dificultad, alguna problemática y buscamos cómo solucionarla o buscamos la forma de incidencia para que nos puedan apoyar de esta manera y así solucionar la problemática. Somos jóvenes comunicadores y líderes en tomas de decisiones. Hoy en día los jóvenes han tenido una participación muy abierta y han sido pues protagonistas de muchos espacios. Y estos jóvenes se han venido capacitando, se han venido formando y a la vez también hemos venido tomando decisiones con los adultos, con las demás personas de nuestra región y que los jóvenes también poseemos energía, creatividad y pasión necesaria para abordar el problema día a día. Hoy los jóvenes tenemos esa energía, tenemos esas ganas de seguir trabajando por nuestro país, por nuestra región y a la vez cómo ir solucionando algunas problemáticas que se abordan y también cómo nosotros aportar a la problemática de nuestra región centroamericana o a nivel mundial. También que los jóvenes debemos de considerar la experiencia de la vida de los adultos mayores. Sabemos que los adultos ya tienen un recorrido largo o ya tienen una experiencia hecha. Y nosotros como jóvenes vamos construyendo esas experiencias, vamos construyendo ese camino. Y es por eso que muchas veces necesitamos el apoyo de los adultos mayores para que ellos nos puedan orientar y a la vez también nos puedan como dar un aporte para que nosotros podamos seguir en este camino y seguir trabajando por los pobres. Considerando que también el Papa Francisco nos ahorta con las siguientes palabras, que nos dice que el discípulo no es solamente el que llega a un lugar, sino el que empieza con decisión, el que no tiene miedo a arriesgar y ponerse a caminar. Si uno se pone a caminar, ese ya es discípulo. Si te quedas quieto, perdiste. Empezar a caminar. Esa es la mayor alegría del discípulo, estar en camino. Como nos llama el Papa Francisco, no quedarnos en una silla sentados, sino que salir a caminar, conocer la realidad en la que vivimos, conocer la realidad de muchas situaciones familiares o hasta de nosotros al contorno tenemos también que ver cuáles son nuestras realidades para sí mismos ser solidarios. Solidarios y tener ese apoyo donde el Papa Francisco nos llama a que salgamos, a que caminemos, a que podamos conocer, que podamos a la vez también aprender y conocer de esas realidades para nosotros tener en cuenta de que hay una lucha que debemos de trabajar contra los pobres y que también es importante salir de nuestra zona de confort, ponernos en camino y buscar a las personas más necesitadas en las periferias, poniendo nuestros dones y talentos al servicio desde gestos sencillos y humildes, repartiendo a diario el pan de la alegría con una sonrisa, realizando una plática profunda sobre acciones cotidianas que podemos hacer cada uno de nosotros, y como jóvenes también estamos llamados a hacer esos pequeños gestos cotidianos de sonrisa, de humildad, y a la vez cómo también apoyar a los más necesitados. Tomando mi testimonio como joven que ha participado en diferentes espacios, considero que tenemos un enorme desafío porque estamos llamados a ser conductores de un proceso de desarrollo económico y social que nos permita a la vez reducir la pobreza. A eso estamos llamados nosotros, los jóvenes a nivel mundial, porque somos el presente y somos el futuro de nuestra sociedad y nuestro entorno. Sin embargo, los jóvenes tenemos una gran ventaja en esa parte, de que tenemos muchas energías, tenemos muchas fuerzas, tenemos un gran don de servicio, de voluntariado y un alto uso de la tecnología hoy en día, que los jóvenes somos los que más utilizamos la tecnología, y puede ser para algo útil, como asimismo una comunicación más fluida entre nuestros semejantes. Estamos llamados los jóvenes a que seamos esos agentes de cambio, seamos esos conductores para el desarrollo económico y social que nos permita tener una participación pues amplia dentro de la sociedad, y a la vez también ser partícipes de esta gran experiencia en la lucha contra la pobreza, que también es muy importante, ¿verdad? Que como jóvenes nos hayan tomado en cuenta, porque tenemos una gran participación y tenemos como jóvenes mucha creatividad y muchas ganas de hacer algo diferente, de hacer pues cosas nuevas, como nos dice el Papa Francisco, que no se quedan pues detrás de una ventana o de un balcón, sino que balconeen la vida, salga. Entonces el llamado que nos hace el Papa Francisco también hacia los jóvenes es que nosotros somos esos promotores de paz, y esos promotores que debemos de luchar día a día con pequeños problemas que tenemos en nuestras periferias. Y me gustaría compartir algo que considero que es importante también, y que reconozcamos que tenemos características de un constructor de paz. Escuchando las diferentes realidades y necesidades de las personas pobres y excluidas. Esto es, que tengamos en cuenta que tenemos oídos grandes. Como un constructor de paz, como un joven o como una persona, debemos de tener oídos grandes para escuchar todas estas realidades de las personas y que también y excluidas. También controlar nuestras palabras que decimos, porque podemos perjudicar o ofender la dignidad de la persona. Esto es, teniendo una boca pequeña para controlar nuestras palabras y nuestras acciones. Observar lo que pasa en nuestro alrededor y no ser indiferentes con las personas que nos rodean. Esto es, teniendo ojos grandes, no ser indiferentes, sino que seamos solidarios, seamos también, como nos dice el Papa Francisco, seamos empáticos con los demás. El caminar hacia el más necesitado, demostrando que cada paso que hacemos es sólidas y confidentes en favor de nuestro prójimo. Esto es, teniendo pies grandes. que debemos de dejar huellas, pero esas huellas que sean positivas y que sean pues demostrando o ayudando a nuestro prójimo. Lugar donde concentra el amor y la misericordia que debemos de ofrecer el hermano más necesitado, tener un corazón grande. Un corazón grande porque teniendo amor nosotros vamos a tener ese sentimiento de poder ayudar a los pobres y a la vez también ser misericordiosos. Como nos dice el Papa Francisco, nos dice nuestro mismo Jesucristo, que seamos personas con misericordia y que seamos personas con amor hacia el prójimo.
Thank you very much, Jairo, for your reflection and for sharing your own experiences with us. I think it's especially important that you've reminded us that taking a new approach towards the poor means that we need to get out of our comfort zone and take a different approach. I especially like the way you say we need to use all the senses in the way that we approach the poor, not just, with financial aid, but also with our eyes, with our hearts, with our mouths, making sure that we keep the dignity of the poor always at the center. So thank you. I hope that the courage of the youth in taking this approach can inspire all of us as we walk towards the World Day of the Poor. I'd now like to invite Rebecca Rathbone, who, as I said, is our officer promoting youth leadership, to say a few words about some practical action that you can take and ways in which we can all participate in the World Day of the Poor, but also beyond that, because of course this is one day, but this should be what we do every day. So thank you, Rebecca.
I'm going to speak here. Let's see what it says on your phone.
Steph, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Okay, great. So thank you as well to all of our speakers. It's been really inspirational to hear your reflections. And I'm very happy to finally reveal to you a very special project that we've been working on for the past couple of months. This has really been a team effort, and youth from across the Confederation have really pulled together to contribute content to this initiative so that it reflects and celebrates the beautiful diversity of the people and experiences from across the Confederation. So we're calling this event From Prayer to Action, a celebration of the World Day of the Poor and World Youth Day. And with this, we'll combine the messages of the World Day of the Poor and World Youth Day in one initiative in a complementary way that brings us from prayer and reflection about poverty to new ways to act to serve them in 2021. And everything you need to take part in this initiative will be found in the next couple of days at the link that you see on your screen there. That's www.caritas.org/prayeraction2021. So you'll see that populated in the next couple of days. And if you head there, please write that link down, head there, and that's where you'll find everything you need to participate. So before we get started, I should mention this is an initiative that has been created by us and will be animated by Caritas Youth, but we've designed it as an initiative that anyone could pick up and use. And so we hope you'll use it as an opportunity to connect with others around you, both in your local diocese and beyond. So this initiative is going to take the form of a calendar, very easy to follow, with prayer and reflection and action prompts for each day. So there will be an online interactive version with videos and full versions of everything. It will be both desktop and mobile friendly so that you can follow along on the go. And there will also be a print version in case it's hard to access internet, or if you prefer to keep your calendars, on the wall or on the fridge or what have you. And that will have all of the text and shortened versions of the prayers as well. So the prompts for the days on the World Day of the Poor and World Youth Day, of course, will follow the themes of Pope Francis's messages for those 2 days. The poor you will always have with you, of course, as we've heard already today. And the theme of the 2021 World Youth Day is Arise, I appoint you as a witness of what you have seen. And all of the weekdays in between will follow the themes of Caritas Internationalis' 5 strategic orientations for this 2019-2023 block that we're currently in. So each weekday will have a prayer written by a Caritas youth. We have all 7 regions represented in these prayers, and 3 see, judge, act prompts for you to reflect on and do either by yourself, or you can do it in a group as a community building exercise. And the goal of all of this is to encourage all of us to look inward and reflect on how we see and serve the poor in our world today, and help us to see new ways that we can allow ourselves to be evangelized by the poor. And then, of course, moving towards World Youth Day, we want everyone to now stand up and arise and be witnesses of what they've seen in these reflections by taking action to serve the poor in new ways. So I just wanted to share with you a little sample of what one of these days of reflections and action prompts will look like. This will come on Wednesday, November the 17th. This prayer that you see was written by the Caritas Oceania Youth Alliance. And in it, they say, "Creator of all goodness, as a symbol of greatness, you created a beautiful blue Moana to be our home. Enlighten us of the sacredness of your creation. Renew us so that we may have the courage to stand up as your witnesses to help sustain and care for all of your creation." And then you'll see next, we have these see, judge, act prompts. This day, of course, follows strategic orientation 3, which is promoting integral human development and caring for creation. So the see, judge, or sorry, the see prompt that we're asking you to consider is, do you see the poor caring for creation in your community? Do you see them recognizing the image of God in others and promoting their human dignity? And then judge, looking at this question from the perspective of our faith. Do you make space for the poor to teach you about how to care for creation and promote human dignity? Where can you make more space in your life to follow the lead of the poor? And then act, of course, we want to turn this into action. And so we say that integral ecology tells us to build strong relationships with God, with our sisters and brothers, and with nature. Go for a walk in nature and find 3 things that you admire. Reflect on how these things are gifts from God. How might people living in poverty value these items differently than you do? And again, so we have prompts similar to this through all of the weekdays. And then all of this, of course, is moving us towards World Youth Day, which will happen on the 21st of November this year, which will be a day of action, which we have described in this way. So Jesus said to Paul on the road to Damascus, "Stand up, I appoint you as a witness of what you have seen." Now it's time for you to stand up and be a witness of what you have seen this week. On this feast of Christ the King, go out and put your love of Christ and love of the poor into action, inspired by your new insights on poverty. Do something today to serve the poor, but in a different way than you would have before. For example, instead of serving to them, engage in dialogue and have a true encounter with them. Instead of speaking for them, help them to speak for themselves. Encourage people to join you and share your initiative with us on social media. We'll also have a couple of moments where we'll all come together through the week in an online setting. We have 2 liturgies. One will take place on the World Day of the Poor on Sunday, the 14th of November, and the next will be on World Youth Day, which is Sunday, the 21st of November. And we've compiled liturgical celebrations with inputs from Caritas youth around the world. I'm very excited for you to see those. They're coming together quite nicely. And then we'll have 2 opportunities to learn and share with each other in 2 webinars. The first is about how to make space to learn from the poor, where Caritas youth will share practical examples of how they make room to incorporate the voices of the poor in their work. And then on Friday, we'll talk about how Caritas youth serve, accompany, and defend the process. So to summarize, to close everything up, we just want to reiterate that we'd love for as many people as possible to participate in this initiative, and we hope that you follow along and share the link widely throughout your networks. Thank you so much.
কটা এক লাইনে কটা দিতে পারবো আমি 16টা আমি তো 4টা করে।
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I think we're going to send a message, but also could I just remind you, if you're not
16টা হলে
to just mute yourself, because otherwise I think all the microphones become a bit confused. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the end of our reflections. There's been a lot to take in and a lot of different subjects covered, but obviously all focusing on taking a new approach towards the poor as we approach the World Day of the Poor 2021. I'd like to invite now if there are comments or questions. I know that Monsignor Graham Bell has left, so unfortunately you won't be able to address anything directly to him. But if there are questions for our other two speakers who are still with us, or just general comments that you would like to share, or initiatives which you are already undertaking or will be undertaking, which you'd like to share with the Confederation as well. I'm not sure that I can see everybody on the screen, but so if you would like to speak, please feel free to speak now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ranjan, for raising this question. What is the role of the youth where Christians are a minority? I will give you an answer with an example. In Pakistan, the youth, Christians and Muslims, where Christians are an ultra minority, they come together through sports. And through sports, they are able to vehicle and also witness the values of Christianism, the values of brotherhood. And in this way, in Lahore, in the diocese of Lahore, they were able to put in place small groups of Christian communities working and playing and living with the Muslim communities. So this is one way of looking at it. How do we motivate? How do you find common space for dialogue? How do you create this common space for dialogue? And how do you bring them into this common space without any, in all humility, in all simplicity? So I think this is where the real challenge today is. And when you talk about poverty, when you talk about charity, when you talk about sufferings, it's the same. And this is one of the discussions the youth used to have in these groups through games, and after the games, the discussions. So how do you find common denominators? So this would be my answer to you, Ranjan, for your question.
Thank you, Aloysius, for your answer. I don't know if there are any other questions.
Yeah, I would like to raise a point here for reflection. We are having this World Day of the Poor. It could be something which can come every year at a given time. But my question and my challenge to all of us in Caritas is how to look beyond the World Day of the Poor, how to have something on a regular basis during the year. For example, in the Philippines, in the basic ecclesial communities in the years 95, 96, when I used to go there, I used to see how the communities used to come together every Sunday to receive the poor in their midst, and how to share with them, and how to also to dialogue with them. So in other words, how to encounter the poor on a regular basis as the one who can change me, but on condition that I'm able to change my regard, my perception of the poor. So how do we go about it? How do we animate our communities? How do we motivate them to be involved in this is one point which comes to my mind. To have this something on a regular basis, so that next year we're also able to take stock of it and see what did we do during this year. If not, the risk we have is it becomes a yearly event, and it becomes a kind of a routine. So this is one challenge I'm raising for all of us. And secondly, if we say poverty is not a fatalism, then How can the poor become agents of change? And how do we want to make them agents of change? By associating ourselves with them, because poor are the ones who don't have a history, they don't have a story. How do we make the road to Emmaus with them is one question also I would like us to have as a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Gabrielle has a question.
Merci beaucoup. Moi, je suis donc président de la région Mona. Je suis aussi président d'une petite Caritas et je suis membre du comité exécutif de l'Expo. Jusqu'à présent, j'ai suivi avec beaucoup d'attention tous les orateurs qui sont intervenus, et notamment pour la définition de la pauvreté, pour le volontarisme des femmes et des jeunes, etc. Mais ce qu'il faut savoir maintenant, c'est que nous sommes confrontés à une massivité de la pauvreté. La pauvreté est devenue massive. Ce n'est plus la petite pauvreté qu'on voyait le dimanche à l'église en donnant un petit pain par-ci, une petite pièce par-là. Maintenant, nous avons affaire à des conflits violents, à des catastrophes naturelles qui ont généré des migrations. Pardon? Je peux continuer?
Allez-y, Gabriel, vous pouvez continuer.
Donc, qui ont généré donc un caractère massif de cette pauvreté-là. Vous avez des millions de déplacements maintenant au niveau international. En Syrie, par exemple, 6 millions de la population ont déménagé aussi bien au niveau interne qu'au niveau externe. Je vois aujourd'hui, ce matin, j'ai écouté à la radio, la Pologne, qui est pourtant un pays catholique, qui est en train de renvoyer de ses frontières les pauvres. Donc voilà, je voulais simplement intervenir à ce niveau-là et pour dire que ce n'est plus une petite affaire, la pauvreté. Et la réponse de la charité doit être en adéquation avec ce caractère massif de la pauvreté. Et c'est pour ça que j'invite beaucoup de tout le monde, aussi bien au niveau des Caritas qu'au niveau de l'Église, de revenir à des normes de gestion de cette pauvreté-là. Et c'est pour ça qu'au niveau de Caritas, on est en train d'organiser justement cette riposte en essayant d'organiser toutes les Caritas du monde selon des standards de gestion. Voilà donc ce que je voulais vous dire très rapidement et que nous y arrivons difficilement, mais nous y arrivons petit à petit. Car il y a peut-être des grandes organisations qui sont désorganisées, mais il y a aussi la majorité de petites organisations. Voilà donc l'économie de mon intervention.
Thank you. I think that Marcela Rabaza has raised her hand from Caritas Bolivia to speak.
Así es, Natalie, quiero hablar, gracias. Bueno, he escuchado muy atentamente y con mucho placer también las reflexiones que nos han compartido los expositores y me quedé pensando en los desafíos que planteaba Aloysius como confederación, los desafíos como Caritas, y creo que ejemplos del trabajo que nosotros hacemos con personas en situación de pobreza, que se puede hablar de adultos mayores, privados de libertad, migrantes, es incontable. Creo que podemos contar todas nuestras experiencias de casi 70 años en nuestras Caritas de ese trabajo. Pero si planteamos desafíos, considero que como confederación tenemos que empezar a ponerle mayor atención, no a la pobreza física, que es la que muchas veces enfocamos nuestro trabajo, que es la pobreza, aquellas personas que no tienen acceso a alimentos, a educación, a salud y que trabajamos con ello. Hoy en día y tras la pandemia, creo que el gran desafío es trabajar con la pobreza de valores en nuestras sociedades. Trabajar como confederación en aquellos males en la sociedad, como lo podemos ver, infanticidios, feminicidios, terrorismo. Lo mencionaba de alguna manera Gabriel y creo que es muy importante tomar en cuenta este desafío. A nivel mundial, la pandemia ha despertado un problema grande como es la salud mental de todos los jóvenes, de mujeres, de personas que día a día han estado enfrentando también esta situación. Creo que como confederación debemos trabajar en la pobreza de valores y principios. Cuando Monseñor hacía su reflexión y decía que Judas se había fijado en el dinero del perfume, no solamente porque ese dinero serviría para comprar muchos alimentos, y Monseñor lo dijo, era porque Judas aprovechaba el dinero para su propio beneficio, lo cual significa un robo. Y ese robo es a los valores a los que yo me estoy refiriendo. No solamente es el tema de distribuir los recursos de una manera adecuada, sino también ver los valores que están implícitos dentro de nuestras acciones. Y creo que la Confederación ha trabajado en este tiempo en estas medidas, pero que debemos fortalecer, debemos profundizar mucho más. Creo que ese sería el desafío y mi comentario a lo que Aloysius preguntaba en su última intervención. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Marcela. And I think Monsignor Vladimir Fekete wanted to speak as well. Thank you. Sorry, Monsignor, you're still muted. If you could just unmute. Thank you.
Excuse me, and I am sure that it's better. Greeting for everyone from Baku, Azerbaijan. We are working here 20 years in small community, and I think one very important thing is the education. Also, the poor people, our parishioners are not very rich, but during last years we try to find a way to educate them. Now that a lot of people are poorer than they, and if they have the possibility support someone in Azerbaijan or abroad with small money, really small money, it is big goal for education ourselves and to open eyes for another. I think we will have poor here, but also the education of poor is important to open the heart, everyone, for the people that are poorest like me. This is my opinion or my suggestion. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much to those last three interventions. I don't know if there are any others, if there's anybody else. Monsignor Pierre.
Yes, I just want to say how important is the reflection we have had and the approach to the celebration of the World Day of the Poor this year and the World Youth Day, linking these two, because we see the youth and also the women as major actors in order to change and to address all forms of poverty in our communities, because most of the time they are heavily affected by these forms of poverty. So trying to involve them, to get them involved, to help them see, judge, and act is very important. So I hope that you will take advantage of this and celebrate the World Day of the Poor and also the World Youth Day with that vision of ensuring that the youth and the women are really made protagonists of all the work that we need to do, all the Caritas or Caritas engagement in this field. So I really encourage you to celebrate this and to use the material that we are sharing to participate in the liturgical events that we are organizing on 14th and also on 21st November to mark the celebration of the World Day of the Poor and the World Youth Day. So thank you very much for having participated in this and for your continued effort to see, judge, and act and to fight against indifference toward the poor in our communities.
Thank you, Monsignor Pierre. I'd like to now invite Aloysius to say a few words to sum up, and then I will also close the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think we had very important inputs and very important questions were raised. And the last three questions are quite important because we spoke about the massivity of poverty, and I would even add feminization of poverty after COVID-19. And Monsignor Azerbaijan said, yes, we could have a solution if you're able to put into value the might of the poorest, the scent of the poorest, as it was said in the gospel of yesterday, how to bring even the poorest, the youth, everybody to become actors of solidarity. So this is something which we retain, and I think this is something which we need to keep, which we need to nurture during the year in our parishes, in our communities, in places where we put the programs. And I also think that there's a need to go in for advocacy on the debt cancellation for a new economic order, wherein money of the poor goes back to the poor in order to help them to live in dignity. So the advocacy work, for example, in the area of debt cancellation and other things could be taken up, and this is something which we will also be looking into. Thank you very much. So, over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Aloysius, and thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you to all of you for participating, and to our translators and to everybody who made all of the technical arrangements for this possible as well. I'd also just like to sum up just with a few closing words. I think that today what's been highlighted to us is, as we know, there are many different forms of poverty, especially after COVID-19. I think what Monsignor Graham Bell said right at the start is quite important about saying nobody is exempt from this. We must never assume superiority over anybody or anything, especially not our relationship with Jesus Christ, who is present in the poor. Our job now, I think, is the World Day of the Poor is there to call our attention to the poor and to different forms of poverty. But our work now is to take this forward into our parishes, our communities, our dioceses and our countries and the Confederation as a whole. And we are, as we know, obliged to act for those who do not experience equality in dignity. So I think I'd just like to sum up by thanking you all again, and wishing you all well and wishing you luck on this renewed mission that we have towards the integral development of the whole person and of all people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.